It looks like we've gotten to the end of our unit on climate and weather. So before we get into today's video about how the Earth's surface affects the weather, if you missed anything or want to go back and review, head to our channel and look through our playlists. All our weather and climate videos are together in one place. Let's get started. The Himalayas, the Rockies, the Alps, the Andes, and even Mount Kilimanjaro. What do these mountains and mountain ranges all have in common? Take a moment and think about it. While you're thinking, remember today's topic is how the Earth's surface affects the weather. Yes, we could say things like they are all made of rock, or that they are hard to climb, but those have nothing to do with weather. However, snow is a part of weather, and that's what we're going to focus on. You see, one thing these mountain ranges had in common is that they all had snow at their tops, or peaks. The thing that makes mountains so unique is the fact that they are so tall. This height means that the peaks of the mountains are at a much higher elevation than the bottom of the mountain. Let's take a step back and talk about what elevation is and how it works. Elevation means the height of the land above sea level. If you live near the coast, your elevation is going to usually be very close to sea level. Maybe 20 to 50 feet above it. As you move further inland, you could reach elevations of a few hundred feet above sea level. This is usually because there are lots of hills. Mountains, true mountains, are a different story. As you near the peak of a mountain, you have reached several thousand feet in elevation. Elevation impacts the weather on Earth's surface because as you reach higher elevations, the temperature will be cooler. The higher you go, the colder it gets. This is why near the peaks of mountains are snowy, but the bottoms are not. In fact, elevation matters so much to temperature that these mountains will have snow on their peaks, even during the summer months. Elevation is important because if you choose to live in a city at a high elevation, the weather will always be colder. So if you don't like cold weather, you should move to cities like Denver or Colorado Springs, which have elevations over 1 mile. While elevation is a major way the Earth's surface affects the weather, it is not the only way. Latitude also affects the weather. Latitude is the distance north or south from the equator. It is measured in degrees. The equator is 0 degrees in latitude. The poles are each 90 degrees in latitude. The red line here represents the equator. It is in the middle of the Earth. Lines of latitude run parallel to the equator. The equator is the warmest part of Earth's surface because the sun's rays directly strike the equator, latitude 0, and cause the regions near the equator to be warmer. Generally, as latitude increases, the temperature of the area decreases. Other features of Earth's surface that affect the weather is the distance a place is from the water, particularly the ocean, and what type of ocean current is nearby. California is next to the ocean, and there is a cold current that flows near it. Nevada is the state right next to California. The reason Nevada is a desert but California isn't, is because of California's proximity to the water, and the fact that the ocean current is cool. If it wasn't for these two factors combining, California would be a desert too, but instead, it has vast forests of redwoods and sequoias. This same principle is also why Russia gets so cold in the winter. Although it is near the ocean, since the water nearby only flows with a cold current, the water freezes and the land becomes a frozen wasteland during the winter. The last thing that impacts the Earth's surface is the fact that the surface is not flat and smooth. It has hills, mountains, valleys, and flatlands. These can be described as topography, or the shape of the land. Topography affects the weather because airflow is affected. Air forced to flow over a mountain will get cooler and lower temperatures. Air flowing over flat lands and areas will flow with higher speeds because nothing is in the way to block its flow. This is part of the reason why it's always windy at the beach. The ocean is flat and doesn't block the flow of the wind. Speaking of the wind, here is one more thing to consider. Global winds also impact the weather. For example, the polar jet stream will move cool polar air from one location to the next. Now, let's summarize what I've said and review what we learned. Global winds can move air from one region to another, impacting the weather. Topography, or the shape of the land, affects the way air flows, which then affects the weather. Ocean currents and proximity to the ocean can have a major impact on the type of climate a particular location experiences. It can keep a place from becoming a desert, or be the reason why the place becomes a frozen wasteland. Latitude plays a very important role in the temperature a place receives. The further away from the equator, the cooler it is, on average. Lastly, elevation also plays a factor on the weather. If the elevation is high enough, you can have snow year-round. If you learned anything from this video or felt like it was educational, don't forget to leave us some love. We put a lot of work into it, and all support is greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot, and see you on the next video.